From the first light spoken across the deep, the world awoke from its quiet sleep. Morning formed when the light appeared. Day was named and the path was clear. From dawn to dusk the work was done. Life moved forward beneath the sun. Evening came and the shadows fell. Night took watch as creation held. The rhythm was set from the opening page. Light for the day, night for the watchful age. When the sun rises, the day begins. Light opens time and the work steps in. From morning glow to the evening close, the pattern flows as creation chose. The heavens speak with a steady voice. Each rising sun renews the choice.
Greetings, Israelite brothers and sisters. Welcome to Brother Hebert Presents. This is part 1 of 2 on When Does a Day Begin? You can follow along with the article by going to www.thinkoutsidethebeast.com. When Does a Day Begin can be found in the calendar section. The heavens, the sun, and the witness of time. Psalm 19:1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night shows knowledge. The phrase day unto day and night unto night shows continuity and succession. One day hands understanding to the next. One night follows another in orderly sequence. This passage presents time as progressive and measurable, not symbolic or abstract. The instruction conveyed is not mystical, but practical. God's calendar is revealed through consistent, observable cycles established in creation. Verse 3. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them has he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. Scripture identifies the sun as the central visible witness governing time upon the earth. The sun is described as having a tabernacle, a circuit, and a course, language of order, completion, and renewal. The sun's going forth and circuit describe a completed revolution of time, after which a new course begins. This language aligns with the biblical concept of yearly renewal and appointed seasons established by God. Psalm 19 establishes that the heavens themselves testify to God's order. Day and night are not random cycles, but appointed ordinances that continually utter speech and show knowledge. This knowledge is not spoken through language, but through observable order, a divinely established rhythm understood throughout the earth. The succession of day and night reveals that time itself is governed by heavenly movements placed by God, not by human tradition. These ordinances declare both his glory and his appointed times. The spring equinox is the sun's tabernacle. Chamber is H2646, kupa, and means chamber, room, canopy, or closet. Race is H734, orak, and means way, path. Circuit is H8622, tekufa, and means a revolution, that is, of the sun, its course, or a revolution of time. Coming round, circuit of time or space, a turning, circuit. After the last day of the year, the 364th day, the sun goes into its tabernacle, finishing his circuit, Tekufa. When the sun completes its circuit and emerges out of its tabernacle to begin a new course or race, Scripture presents this as a turning point in time. The renewed moment of the sun marks the transition from one completed cycle into another. This renewal is not determined by darkness or nightfall, but by the return of light upon the earth, the visible testimony of God's appointed sign. The writings attributed to Enoch do not establish doctrine, but they do preserve ancient understanding regarding the movement of the heavenly lights. These writings consistently emphasize observable order, rising, setting, measured courses, and fixed cycles. While not scripture, they reflect an early awareness that time was measured by the sun's movement upon the earth, reinforcing the biblical testimony found in Genesis and the Psalms. Enoch 72, 1-32 give details. Notably, the descriptions consistently emphasize the rising of the sun rather than its setting. The day is measured by mornings in succession, highlighting the beginning of time cycles at the appearance of light rather than the onset of darkness. In the first month, the sun rises through the fourth eastern portal. From that portal come 12 window openings that release flame in their season. For 30 mornings in succession, the sun rises in that same fourth portal and sets in the corresponding western portal, and during this time, the day steadily grows longer. After those 30 mornings, the sun shifts forward. It rises and sets in the fifth portal for another 30 mornings. Later in its course, the sun returns again, rising in the fourth portal for 31 mornings, marking the sign of the season before continuing its circuit. Throughout the passage, the cycle is counted by mornings in succession. The movement of time is marked by the sun's rising, by the appearance of light, not by the onset of darkness. Jubilees 2:9. And God appointed the sun to be a great sign on the earth for days and for Sabbaths and for months and for feasts and for years and for Sabbaths of years and for jubilees and for all seasons of the years. Jubilees affirms the sun as the appointed sign for days, Sabbaths, seasons, feasts, years, and jubilees. The emphasis is placed upon the sun's function as the governing light for earthly timekeeping. This reflects the same principle established in Genesis 1:14, that the lights were given to regulate time on the earth, not to obscure it. The great sign of the sun is the spring equinox, and it is used to calibrate the calendar. It also calibrates the portals, as the portals are measured by days, beginning when the sun rises and shines on the earth. When the sun completes its circuit, it goes into its tabernacle. This is the spring equinox. When the sun rises, it comes out of its tabernacle and begins the new year. The sun begins to run a new race. Scripture consistently presents time as governed by light, not darkness. The heavens testify continually, the sun marks appointed cycles, and the renewal of time is associated with the return of light upon the earth. From Genesis through the Psalms, and supported by ancient witnesses, the day is understood through observable order established by God. Definitions: day, evening, morning, and light. Much confusion surrounding when a day begins comes from failing to define biblical terms accurately. Scripture uses specific words to describe light, darkness, evening, morning, and day, and these terms are not interchangeable. A proper understanding of time must therefore begin with the meanings assigned by Scripture itself, not later religious tradition. Evening. H. 6153, Arab. Dusk. Evening, night, sunset. The term Arab does not describe full night, Layla, but rather the transition toward darkness. It refers to the declining of light, the mixing of light and darkness, commonly understood as dusk or twilight. Evening marks the closing portion of the daylight season, not the beginning of a new day. Evening, G3798, Opsios. Late, afternoon, or nightfall, either from 3 to 6 o'clock p.m., or from 6 o'clock p.m. to the beginning of night. Sunset, from Webster's Dictionary, the descent of the sun below the horizon, or the time when the sun sets, evening. The sun can no longer be seen with the physical eye. The time between sunset and night is called dusk or twilight, which is the mixing of light and darkness. Sunrise, the first appearance of the sun above the horizon in the morning. Sunrise commonly refers to periods of time both before and after this point. Twilight, the period in the morning during which the sky is light but the sun is not yet visible, is called dawn. Dawn, G2020, Epifosco, to begin to grow light, to dawn. Genesis 1:3, and God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. The evening and the morning were the first day. The sequence presented in Genesis is consistent throughout the chapter. God acts. Light is present. Evening arrives. Night passes. Morning appears. The day is completed. The completion of the day is recognized at the return of light. Day, H. 3117, Yom. To be hot, a day, as the warm hours, whether literally from sunrise to sunset, or from one sunset to the next, or figuratively a space of time defined by an associated term. Yom also means an age. A day can be a day, time, or year. A day as opposed to night. A day, 24-hour period. A day as defined by evening and morning in Genesis 1. A day as a division of time, and a day as working a day or a day's journey. The Hebrew word yom is used in more than one sense throughout Scripture. It may refer to the daylight portion only, or to a complete cycle of time consisting of both light and darkness. Context determines its meaning. Scripture itself distinguishes between the daylight season and the night season, while also recognizing the full cycle formed by both together. Day can mean 12 hours or 24 hours. 24 hours equals a cycle. 12 hours equals a season. Day season has 12 hours. Night season has 12 hours. Jeremiah 33:20. Thus says Yahweh,
"If you can break my covenant of the day and my covenant of the night, and that there should not be day and night in their season."
John 11:9. Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbles not, because he sees the light of this world. We see the day season has 12 hours. Therefore, the night season would also have 12 hours to complete the full 24-hour cycle. Scripture clearly identifies two distinct seasons within the full cycle of time. The daylight season consists of approximately 12 hours of light, while the night season completes the cycle with darkness. These two seasons together form a complete day, yet they are not identical in function. Light governs activity, while darkness governs rest. Genesis 1:5, And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. The two 12-hour cycles are addressed, the light first, the darkness second. The 24-hour cycle of the light of day and the dark of night. Dawn and twilight belong to the light. The 12-hour day season is further divided into two parts, dusk and morning. Dusk is a middle degree between light and darkness. Twilight, the faint light which is reflected upon the earth after sunset and before sunrise. The light seen in the sky during dusk is from the sun. Morning, as the break of day, dawn, generally morning, early morning, the mixture of light and darkness, the end of night. Dawn is the break of day, the first appearance of light in the morning. The word boker, morning, refers to the breaking forth of light, the end of night and the beginning of visibility. Morning is consistently associated with renewal, awakening, activity, and commencement throughout Scripture. Morning represents the return of light upon the earth. Both dawn and dusk involve the presence of light. Though the sun may not yet be fully visible, its light is already active upon the earth. These transitional periods belong to the lighted portion of the cycle rather than the darkness of night. Both dawn and dusk segments of the 24-hour cycle belong to the day season. The first light on the first day was not from the sun. It was Yahweh's light. There would not have been a small segment of dawn on the first day because Yahweh had not separated the darkness from his light yet. Once the sun was created or restored with light on the fourth day, there would have been a dawn segment of light following the first night season. Genesis 1:16, And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Notice that the words he made are in italics, which means those words were not in the original text but were added by the translators. There is another word that does not appear in the Bible text, though it is not in italics, and that word is also. This fact can be established by going to Strong's Concordance and looking up the word. When this is done, one finds there is no number next to the word also. The proper translation and reading is, And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, the stars. Notice, the stars follow the colon. One dictionary's definition of a colon is that the colon is used to separate clauses when the second expands the first. So the words, the stars, expand the meaning of greater and lesser lights. Verse 17, And God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. The order is day light, night darkness. The night season never has light from the sun. There are no divisions in the night season. The morning and the evening belong to the day season. Light was created first. There was no dawn on the first day. Genesis 1:3, And God said,
Let there be light.
and there was light. After light was made, the evening followed. After the evening turned to darkness, night followed. When the night was over, the morning followed. Morning begins the new 24-hour cycle. Genesis 1:5. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. The word were is H 1961, Hayah, to be, become, come to pass, exist, happen, follow. Scripture does not state that night and morning constitute a day, but evening and morning constitute a day. Evening does not and cannot refer to night. Evening refers to the period of time between high noon and the point of darkness, which is night. If we use the word followed from the definition of H 1961 Hayah, the verse reads, the evening following the morning became the first day. The light season. The hours of daylight only. It is talking about the morning, up to high noon, and evening, noon to dusk. This is the day season, the 12 daylight hours. No night is involved. Another translation, Good News Bible, German Bible, Schlachter, and Elberfelder, reads, And he named the light day, and the darkness night. Evening passed, and morning came. That was the first day. In this translation, we have a 24-hour cycle, including a full day and a full night following the day. By inserting the correct word, it actually reverses the order of the day, causing the evening to follow the morning. Genesis 1:5, And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. The sequence of events in Genesis 1 is presented in order. First, God performs the creative work. Second, light is present and defined as day. Third, evening arrives as the light declines. Fourth, night passes. Fifth, morning appears with the return of light. At this point, the first day is complete. The statement, the evening and the morning were the first day, describes the completion of that day as light passes through evening, night, and returns again in the morning. Scripture does not state that night begins the day. Rather, it shows that the day is completed through an evening and a morning, with the conclusion recognized at the return of light. When Scripture is allowed to define its own terms, the pattern remains consistent. God begins with light, not darkness. The biblical day is recognized by the rising of light upon the earth, not by its departure. The sanctuary services were always calculated with the day beginning at dawn. 1 Samuel 17:16, And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. 1 Chronicles 16:40, to offer burnt offerings unto Yahweh upon the altar of the burnt offering continually morning and evening. 2 Chronicles 2:4, Behold, I build a house to the name of Yahweh my God, to dedicate it to him, and to burn before him sweet incense, and for the continual showbread, and for the burnt offerings morning and evening, on the Sabbaths, and on the new months, and on the solemn feasts of Yahweh our God. This is an ordinance forever to Yisrael. 2 Chronicles 31:3, He appointed also the king's portion of his substance for the burnt offerings, for the morning and evening burnt offerings, and the burnt offerings for the Sabbaths, and for the new months, and for the set feasts, as it is written in the law of Yahweh. Ezra 3:3. And they set the altar upon his bases, for fear was upon them because of the people of those countries, and they offered burnt offerings thereon unto Yahweh, burnt offerings morning and evening. Psalm 65:8. They also that dwell in the uttermost parts are afraid at your tokens. You make the outgoings of the morning and evening to rejoice. There are 28 verses that declare the day precedes the night. The continual offerings were appointed morning and evening, not evening and morning. This order reflects the biblical pattern. Activity begins with light and concludes as light fades. The sanctuary pattern mirrors the creation pattern. Light first, darkness afterward. Abram's covenant with Yahweh, a pattern of the day. In Genesis 15, Yahweh appears to Abram in a vision and assures him that there is nothing to fear, declaring himself to be Abram's shield and exceeding great reward. Abram is then brought outside and commanded to look toward heaven and number the stars, receiving the promise,
So shall your seed be.
Following this, Abram is instructed to prepare a formal covenant ceremony. This type of covenant involved a selection of specific animals and birds, a heifer, a she-goat, a ram, a turtle dove, and a pigeon, prepared according to established custom. This covenant took place at the time that would be later identified as the beginning of the year, specifically on what would become the 14th day of the first month, the day later known as Passover. Abram prepared the sacrifices during the daylight portion of the day. While he waited, birds of prey descended upon the carcasses, indicating that this portion of the covenant activity occurred during the light season. Genesis 15:12 records that as the sun was going down, Abram fell into a deep sleep induced by God. During this time, Abram received a vision revealing that his descendants would be strangers and afflicted in a land not their own for 400 years. Later, after the sun had gone down and darkness had fully come, Yahweh completed his portion of the covenant. Genesis 15:17. And it came to pass that, when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. The sacrificial animals from verse 9. Abram performed his portion of the covenant during the light season. Yahweh performed his portion of the covenant during the night season. This two-part covenant took place on the same 24-hour cycle day. The night followed the 3 p.m. evening sacrifices and was part of the 24-hour cycle of the 14th day of the first month. Yet Scripture testifies that this entire event occurred within the same day. Genesis 15:18. In the same day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abram. The same 24-hour cycle of the day season and the night season. This demonstrates that the biblical day consists of both the daylight season and the night season together, a complete 24-hour cycle, not two separate days divided at sunset. The pattern repeated at the Exodus. Exactly 430 years later, this covenantal pattern is repeated at the Exodus. Exodus 12:41. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the hosts of Yahweh went out from the land of Egypt. Exodus 12:51. And it came to pass the selfsame day that Yahweh did bring the children of Yisrael out of the land of Mitzrayim by their armies. Jeremiah confirms this same covenantal timing. Jeremiah 34:13. Thus says Yahweh, the God of Yisrael,
I made a covenant with your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondmen.
So we see, the covenant with Abram and the deliverance from Egypt are both identified as occurring on the same day, even though each involved activity that took place during both daylight and darkness. The night did not begin a new day. It completed the same covenant day. The Exodus later followed this identical pattern, confirming that the biblical day includes both the light season and the night season together as one complete cycle. Egypt's Passover. In Exodus 12:1-10, Yahweh speaks to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt and establishes the calendar for Israel.
This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you.
The first month was thereby set by divine command, marking the beginning of the sacred year. Yahweh instructed that each household was to take a lamb on the 10th day of the month and keep it until the 14th day. The 14th day, the lamb was to be slain in the evening, described in the Hebrew as between the evenings, the period when daylight is declining but before full darkness. The blood of the lamb was then to be applied to the doorposts and lintel of each house. The Israelites were commanded to eat the Passover lamb that same night, with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. None of the lamb was to remain until the morning.
And you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remains of it until the morning you shall burn with fire.
They were also instructed,
And none of you shall go out of the door of his house until the morning.
the timing of the Passover. The preparation of the lamb occurred during the daylight portion of the 14th day. The eating of the lamb and the passing of the destroyer occurred during the night portion that followed. Yet Scripture treats both actions as belonging to the same day. The night did not begin a new calendar day. It completed the same Passover day. This becomes evident because the lamb was slain on the 14th, and the events of that night are still identified as Passover, not as the 15th until morning arrives. The departure does not occur until morning, indicating the transition into the next day. Thus, the Passover demonstrates the same biblical pattern seen in Genesis and the covenant with Abram. Light initiates the day, darkness completes it. Morning marks the beginning of the next day's action. Between the evenings. Exodus 12:6.
And you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Yisrael shall kill it in the evening.
The phrase translated in the evening is the Hebrew expression bein ha-arba'im, literally between the evenings, the time between noon and darkness. This expression refers to a defined period of time during the decline of daylight, not full darkness. The meaning of between the evenings, from the treasury of Scripture knowledge. Till the sun passed the meridian, all was morning or forenoon. After that, all was evening or afternoon. The first evening began just after noon and continued until sunset. The second evening began at sunset and continued until night. Thus, between the evenings describes the period after noon and before full darkness, the latter portion of the daylight season. This explains why the Passover lamb was slain in the afternoon, yet eaten later that same night. Passover, observed on the same day. The Scriptures confirm that the Passover activities occurred within the same calendar day, though they spanned both daylight and darkness. 2 Chronicles 35:1 and 13 through 16 records, "The lambs were slain on the 14th day. They were roasted according to the ordinance. The priests continued their service until night. All the service of Yahweh was prepared the same day." 2 Chronicles 35:1. "Moreover, Josiah kept a Passover unto Yahweh in Jerusalem. And they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. And they roasted the Passover with fire according to the ordinance. And afterward they made ready for themselves and for the priests, because the priests, the sons of Aaron, were busied in offering of burnt offerings and the fat until night. So all the service of Yahweh was prepared the same day to keep the Passover." This passage plainly states that preparation, sacrifice, and observance occurred on the same day, even though night followed. The coming of darkness did not begin a new day. The time after sundown was still the 14th day. Exodus 12:10.
And you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remains of it until the morning you shall burn with fire.
The morning referenced is the morning of the 15th day, showing that the night belonged to the 14th. It was during this night, still part of Passover day, that the destroyer passed through Egypt. The judgment occurred at midnight during the night season of the 14th day, not at the beginning of a new day. Exodus 12:18.
In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at even, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month, at even.
This command requires eating unleavened bread at the evening of the 14th day, yet the Feast of Unleavened Bread itself begins on the 15th day. This distinction shows that at even marks a transition period, not the start of a new calendar day. The evening completes the day, the light hours. It does not begin it. The same pattern at the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement follows the identical structure. Leviticus 23:32.
It shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and you shall afflict your souls. In the 9th day of the month at even, from even to even shall you celebrate your Sabbath.
Leviticus 23:27.
Also, on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you, and you shall afflict your souls, and you shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before Yahweh your God. For whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in the same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. And whatsoever soul it be that does any work in that same day, the same soul will I destroy from among his people. You shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and you shall afflict your souls. In the 9th day of the month at even, from even unto even shall you celebrate your Sabbath.
This establishes two separate but connected requirements. Requirement 1. No work. No labor was permitted during the daylight portion of the 10th day. Requirement 2. Afflict your souls. The affliction, or fasting, began at evening on the 9th day and continued until evening on the 10th day. Fasting, tsum, to abstain from food, required a full 24-hour period extending through both night and day. The fast therefore began before the Day of Atonement itself and concluded as the daylight portion of the 10th day ended. Completion of the day. Once the sanctuary service was completed and the sins of the camp removed, the fast would end as evening approached, followed by restoration and fellowship. This pattern mirrors Passover exactly. Preparation during the day, observance extending into the night, completion marked at evening, next day beginning with morning light. How do we afflict the soul? The command to afflict your souls is repeatedly associated with the Day of Atonement, yet Scripture does not leave the meaning undefined. Isaiah 58:3 states, "Wherefore have we fasted, say they, and you see not? Wherefore have we afflicted our soul?" In this passage, fasting and afflicting the soul are used interchangeably, showing that affliction refers specifically to abstaining from food. The Hebrew word translated fasted is tsum, H6684, meaning to abstain from food, to fast. This understanding carries directly into the New Testament. Acts 27:9 records, "Because the fast was now already past." The Greek word used is neistia, G3521, meaning abstinence from food, fasting. Thus, both Hebrew and Greek testimony confirm that afflicting the soul is not emotional sorrow, outward mourning, or ritual suffering, but deliberate physical fasting. The fast begins before the appointed day, so that the people enter the Day of Atonement already humbled, weakened, and dependent upon Yahweh. Pharaoh's chariots. Dawn reveals the new day. This event provides one of the clearest demonstrations in Scripture that the day begins with the morning, not at sunset. Exodus 14:10, "And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. And they were sore afraid, and the children of Israel cried out unto Yahweh." When Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes and saw the Egyptian army approaching. These events occurred during the light portion of the day, as the enemy was observed at a distance. Exodus 14:13, "And Moses said unto the people, Fear you not, stand still, and see the salvation of Yahweh, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you shall see them again no more forever." The Hebrew word for day, H3117, Yom, can mean 12 hours, daylight season, or 24 hours, depending on context. Were the Israelites free of the Egyptians before sunset, the beginning of the new day, according to sunset theory? If the sunset to sunset theory were correct, then the arrival of sunset would have ended the today spoken by Moses. Yet the promised salvation has not yet occurred. The night did not end today. Exodus 14:19-20 shows that after sunset, the angel of God and the pillar of cloud moved behind Israel, creating darkness for the Egyptians and light for Israel all the night. Exodus 14:19, "And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night." Sunset came and went, yet Israel was not yet delivered. According to sunset reckoning, the new day would have already begun, but Scripture continues to treat the unfolding events as part of the same today promised earlier. Salvation unfolds during the night. Exodus 14:21, And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. The promise from Yahweh was, He would literally demonstrate to our Israelite ancestors His physical salvation. The angel of Yahweh relocated to the rear of the camp in the light season. Moses stretches out his arm to command the east wind. The strong wind divides the waters. The miraculous corridor is exposed, drying a path across the Red Sea. During the night season, the waters were driven back, the seabed dried. Israel passed through the sea, the Egyptians pursued. The deliverance was in progress, but not yet completed. The towering walls of water were on either side of the Israelites as they hurried to the other shore during the night season. The seawater crashes, enveloping the doomed Egyptians in the morning just before dawn of the next day. Yahweh showed His salvation to our ancestors in the promised today, or that night. Morning reveals completion. Exodus 14:24. And it came to pass that in the morning watch Yahweh looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, that they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for Yahweh fights for them against the Egyptians. And Yahweh said unto Moses,
Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen.
And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and by dawn the sea returned to his strength when the morning appeared. And the Egyptians fled against it, and Yahweh overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. It was when the morning appeared, not at sunset, that Yahweh completed the salvation promised today of verse 13. The Egyptians were overthrown as the new morning arrived. The meaning of today. All the events, from Moses' promise during daylight, through the night crossing, and into the moment just before dawn, occurred within the same divine today. The day did not change at sunset. The 24-hour day was completed when the morning appeared. Yahweh showed His salvation to Israel today, a day that began with light, continued through the night, and was completed at the appearance of morning. This event powerfully confirms the biblical pattern. Light begins the day. Darkness completes it. Morning reveals the new day. The Manna Week. The day begins in the morning. The account of the manna provides one of the most clearest instructional patterns for understanding when the biblical day begins. Exodus 16:1 records that the children of Israel came into the wilderness of Sin on the 15th day of the second month after departing Egypt. At this time the people were hungry and murmured against Moses. Exodus 16:1. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came into the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. Then said Yahweh unto Moses,
Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them, whether they will walk in my law or no. And it shall come to pass, that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily.
These instructions were given to prepare Israel for the seventh-day Sabbath. The weekly pattern established. The manna week required a precise order. 1 omer gathered each day for 5 consecutive days. A double portion gathered on the 6th day. No gathering on the seventh-day Sabbath. To complete 6 commanded work days before the Sabbath, the counting must begin at the start of a full day, not in the middle of one. This means the first day of gathering could not begin at sunset, but at the beginning point of the day itself. Evening and morning distinction. Moses explained the timing clearly. Exodus 16:8. And Moses said, This shall be, when Yahweh shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full. The quail came in the evening, but the manna came in the morning. The provision of manna was therefore tied to the appearance of morning light, not to sunset. Manna confirms the start of the day. During the first 5 days, the Israelites were commanded not to leave any manna until the morning. Notwithstanding they hearkened not unto Moses, but some of them left of it until the morning, and it bred worms and stank. Exodus 16:20. The manna did not spoil at sunset. It spoiled when the morning arrived, because fresh manna would appear again at that time. This shows that the transition to a new day was marked by morning, not by evening. The 6th day and the Sabbath. On the 6th day the people gathered a double portion. And it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread. Exodus 16:22. Moses then declared, Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto Yahweh. Exodus 16:23. If the Sabbath began at sunset, Moses would have said, Tonight is the Sabbath. Instead, he said tomorrow. This statement only makes sense if the Sabbath began with the next morning, not with the approaching evening. The manna was governed by mornings, not sunsets. Each new day was marked by the appearance of bread from heaven at dawn. The manna week establishes an unbroken biblical pattern. Work begins with morning. Provision appears with light. Counting advances at dawn. The Sabbath is recognized at the morning. The weekly cycle taught Israel that the day begins when God provides again, in the morning. Roman reckoning. Civil time versus biblical time. By the 1st century, the Roman world measured civil time from midnight to midnight. This system differed from the biblical method, which measured time by daylight and night seasons, beginning with morning. Because the Gospel of John was written later and circulated widely throughout the Roman Empire, it occasionally reflects Roman civil time references for the sake of clarity to its intended audience. This explains apparent timing differences between John and the Synoptic Gospels. Roman reckoning scriptures, Matthew 27:19, John 19:13-14, and 20:1 and 19. Pilate and the 6th hour, Matthew 27:19. When Pilate was set down on the judgment seat, his wife sent unto him, saying, Have you nothing to do with that just man? For I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. John provides additional detail. John 19:13. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Jesus forth, and sat down in the judgment seat in a place that is called the Pavement, but in the Hebrew, Gabbatha. And it was the preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour. And he said unto the Judeans, Behold your king. Then delivered he him therefore unto them to be crucified, and they took Jesus and led him away. At first glance, this appears contradictory, because the Synoptic Gospels state that by the 6th hour Jesus was already on the cross, and darkness covered the land. Luke 23:44, and it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. By that time, Jesus had already been crucified. Soldiers had cast lots for his garments. The inscription was placed above him. He had spoken with the thief. So how could Pilate still be seated at the 6th hour? Two different time systems. The answer lies in two different systems of reckoning time. The Synoptic Gospels count hours according to biblical reckoning, beginning at dawn. John, writing to a Roman audience, references Roman civil time, which began the day at midnight. Thus, John's 6th hour, approximately 6 a.m., the Synoptic 6th hour, approximately 12 noon. There is no contradiction, only two different clocks. Pilate's wife and this day. Pilate's wife said she suffered many things this day in a dream. Jesus had been in custody throughout the night. For her dream to have occurred on the same day as Pilate's early morning judgment, the day must already have begun sometime after midnight, consistent with Roman civil reckoning. This again reflects Roman time usage within the governing authority. Resurrection morning and Roman time. John also records in John 20:1, the first day of the week comes Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and sees the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Under Roman reckoning, the first day of the week began at midnight. Thus Mary, arriving while it was yet dark, is described as occurring on the first day of the week, even though by biblical reckoning the night still belonged to the preceding day. John records the event according to Roman civil time for his audience, not to redefine biblical time. The evening appearance. Later, John writes in John 20:19, Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus, and stood in the midst, and said unto them, Peace be unto you. Again, same day reflects Roman civil reckoning, the midnight to midnight cycle, not the biblical day defined by light. The presence of Roman time references in the Gospel of John does not alter the biblical pattern established in Torah and the prophets. Rather, it demonstrates that multiple timekeeping systems existed simultaneously, and Scripture faithfully records events within their proper cultural context. Understanding this distinction resolves apparent contradictions and preserves the consistent biblical testimony. God's appointed day is revealed by light, not by darkness. Part 2 will shed more light on the subject.
When the sun rises, the day begins. Creation's truth still breathes within. From first bright beam to evening calm, time unfolds in Yahweh's song. The heavens speak with a steady voice. Each rising sun